just considering how water changes from solid to liquid to gas, the ability to do that. And then if it's the carrier of the wisdom of the ages, I like to think about Antarctica as an example. It's mostly made up of ice. It's like one places that we probably know the least about. But if it's a carrier of the wisdom of the ages, it's mostly made up ice. How much information is right there, our origin stories. Talk to the water when you're with the water, not about the water. So talk to the water, not about the water. And that shifts the relationship of how we commune with water when we're talking to water versus about it. And then that relationship strengthens the communication and the ability to attune to the intelligence, the living messages to support our creative nature, because water is very creative. So we start creating with water. It's also been taught from Veda about, there's we think about the water over our eyes, that we're looking through water.
Wow. Yeah.
We do. And it's like, wow, we're looking through water and just attuning to that possibility.
Welcome to the Sacred Planet podcast. I am your host, Jocelyn Starfeather. We are living at the end of a massive 26,000 year cycle. This is a cycle that can be defined not astrologically, but astronomically by the movement of the North Star in the sky. Every 26,000 years, we come back to the original North Star. The times that we are living in now are when one of these 26,000 year cycles is ending and a new one is beginning. And so this is why this time when we are alive right now has been foretold in the ancient prophecies of many indigenous and ancient peoples all around the world, from almost every continent. This is why the world feels so chaotic, so uncertain, and so unstable right now, because we are truly shifting from one age, one massive 26,000 year age, into a new one. This is also why we are seeing so many changes in our own lives, so many changes in the world. It's because the systems and structures, the patterns and beliefs that we have been carrying for an extremely long time are collapsing. They are breaking down. And this is terrifying and also very exciting, because those of us who are alive at this time, we get to choose what we will build next. We get to choose who we want to become in this new era. So it's really important to know during these times that these are actually not only ending times. This is not meant to be an apocalypse. This is actually meant to be the closing of a door to the old ways of being and the opening of a door to the new ways, to the radical new world that we are here to build together. We are here at this time, at this momentous time, to choose what will come next. And so let us dream into a world that our children and grandchildren and the next 7 generations will be delighted to inherit from us. And let's begin creating it one by one from within ourselves. That is where all change must begin, is from within every individual, and then it is rippled out to the world in miraculous and beautiful ways. Here in the Sacred Planet podcast, we will be talking about spiritual awakening. We will be talking about the massive changes that are happening in our world, and we'll be talking most importantly about how you can support yourself, how you can feel most healed and healthy and whole and inspired and uplifted and ready to build this new world together, ready to choose who you wish to become next as all of the old falls away and we are left with a blank slate to create anything that we wish, anything that we dream into the future. Welcome to the Sacred Planet podcast. I can't wait to share the incredible speakers and topics that we'll be sharing here on the podcast, and I hope that it will be a tremendous inspiration to you in your own life. I am your host of the podcast. My name is Jocelyn Starfeather. I am the founder of Sacred Planet. Sacred Planet is a global community of people who are awakening to their true power and magic within and co-creating together and uplifting and inspiring one another as we build this radical new world together. I can't wait to share more with you. I'll see you soon in our next podcast episode. Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Sacred Planet podcast. I am your host, Jocelyn Starfeather, and I am delighted to be here today with Isis Indriya. Welcome, Isis. Thank you so much for being a part of the podcast.
My honor. It's been such an honor to weave with you and all the ways we've been weaving. And just want to say thank you for all the things that you do to support humanity and our culture. Thank you so much.
Likewise. Same to you. Thank you so much for all that you're doing as well. It's always a pleasure to speak with you. So I will share your background and your bio here briefly at the beginning. So born in Mesa, Arizona, indigenous to and raised on the island of Guam, Isis Indriya dedicates her life in service to prayer, education, and community activism. With the loss of her mother, Deborah, at the age of 4, Isis's desire to commune with the unseen, the ancestors, and those on the other side has been at the forefront of her life and what has led her to ritual as a way of life. At the age of 17, she moved to the U.S. and began her studies in mythology and breathwork, which led to the focus on ancient mystery studies, sacred sciences, and earth wisdom traditions. With cultivation of community at the heart of her offerings, she dove into event production, ritual, and education as a way to create culture. With over 20 years of experience in various forms of gatherings, ranging from one-on-one sessions to facilitation of rituals of over 30,000 people with Wisdomkeepers from around the world, Isis dedicates her life to learning and creating platforms for the teaching of sacred sciences of the ancients, Indigenous wisdom, cultural exchange, nature's intelligence, and inner transformation as pathways for moving forward. Many people know Isis through the role that she holds as one of the lead producers of The Compass at Lightning in a Bottle Festival, where she has hosted hundreds of thought leaders and entertainers from around the world. As a minister, culture creator, bridge builder, and fireplace keeper for the Oracle clan, and an educator of ritual, divination, Egyptian cosmology, and Hermeticism, Isis shares what she has learned along her way all over the world. She also leads pilgrimages to Egypt and in her temple hosts community prayers and gatherings. Her continued study and focus are on regenerative culture as an offering to this life and future generations to come. And yes, I'll just say again, Isis, thank you so much for all of the beautiful work that you're doing in the world, all of the ways that you are helping and guiding and supporting so many to remember who we truly are, to awaken to this divinity within ourselves. I so deeply honor your work and your mission in the world.
Thank you. Honored to be here. I'm chiming in here from the ancestral homelands of the Nisenan, this area, Ulicha, Ustama, Nevada City, California. And I just want to, say greetings to each and every one of our benevolent, elevated ancestors, our guides and our allies today. And coming from, Chamorro culture, the island peoples of Guam, I just want to say half a day and say how grateful I am to be here.
Beautiful, wonderful. Thank you so much for that blessing at the beginning. And yes, so much gratitude to all of our ancestors, all of our guides who are here with us, helping us and inspiring us along the way. So yes, well, Isis, I would love if you could share with us as we begin a bit about oracular work. I know that is very much at the heart of what you do. So what is oracular consciousness and how do we tune in? How do we really connect in as the oracle ourselves to this higher level of consciousness that's available?
Well, first and foremost, I feel like oracular consciousness is natural to each and every one of us. And, in our original divine blueprint, which, I believe was when we had access to all of our intelligences that we are learning how to do now, That is the oracular consciousness, all access to all of the inner intelligences. I believe we're made up of both the earth and the star, the stars. We're made up of stardust and earth soil. And with that is the wisdom of so many different ways of the cosmos and this natural world. Also too, being mostly made up of water, and water carrying the living messages of the wisdom of the ages. Water doesn't leave, it changes form. We're mostly made up of water. The wisdom of the ages is embedded inside the water in our body. And that same water, it's the water that we drink and the rain that falls and the rivers and the oceans. And so really oracular consciousness is tuning into gaining access to the interior intelligences of the cosmos within. Like that classic phrase from the Emerald Tablet, as above, so below, as within, so without. And so much of it too, I find, is part of, this time of transition and transformation, as so many of the systems we were programmed to function inside of, as they're changing form, breaking down or transforming, so must us also, because those programs that we've been trained to function inside of these systems are coming down too. And with that is this beautiful opportunity for this opening into these other parts of ourselves and the interior intelligences, and access to other parts of our DNA and our brain and our glands and our consciousness. The original peoples in my studies, our origin stories were together consciously and coherently co-shaping with the natural world and the divine. It's a relationship. It's a shared communication. And, back in the days, so many things were divined. In divination, we had a really sophisticated way of listening to, learning from, and seeing the signs and symbols and the information and the communication with the entire natural world, the fire, the water, the air, the stones, the ancestor stone beings. And in that way too, in relationship to the cosmos, a really strong communication with the cosmic beings too, and cosmic resonance. And so part of this work of oracular consciousness is, of course, the regular daily practice of cleansing and purifying ourselves to then liberate, and open up these gates, oftentimes through our six senses, our six common senses, all the clairs, they're doorways into all of these other intelligences that reside within. And it's natural to us. Everybody has it. Part of it is just taking the time to tune in and do the healing work so these gates can open. And they're continual too, in the ancient Egyptian teachings, which I really love, it talks about how we're always in the journey of becoming. We're not done. We're just always becoming. And I love feeling that, because in the journey of becoming, in our journey of growth and our journey, as we come closer to the only thing that's certain, death, the journey back to the light, the great work of transformation, the divine work, is to do this cleansing, healing, purification work on behalf of opening more gates in our consciousness, on behalf of our own transformation, and also to serve others along the way as an act of service, Yes. And the work of the oracle too is, I find so much about attunement, listening, paying attention, tuning in, approach, how we approach our lives, how we approach a sacred way of life, how we approach each other, rooted in my culture is called anafa maulik, rooted in a deep respect. The way to maintain the harmony of all relations is through a deep respect, for a sacred way of life. And then tuning in, listening, paying attention, learning from the information, the communication, and within and without. And then also building a relationship with the great mystery, the unseen. There's the seen, and then there's the unseen, even just with our ancestors alone, and then our guides and our allies and our relations. There's our relations in the natural world, the seen ones, and then the relations in the natural world, the unseen ones, and same with the divine forces and cosmic forces. So I find with the oracle work is, learning how to be a vessel, and part of that is the regular clearing, purification, cleansing to help realign, sometimes with a simple daily purification process. It might be to clean up a thought 2 minutes ago, or to like cleanse a remembrance from a lifetime ago. But in that way, that cleansing is to then realign to presence, really presence on behalf of the great work of transformation and service.
Yes, so beautiful. And I feel that, there are so many wild kinds of technology coming out in our world, and I mean, even there are wonderful uses of technology, like we're talking on Zoom right now, and there are forms of technology that seem to take us further away from our true self and who we are. And I think we forget, and it's so important to remember that we are the highest technology, right? These incredible bodies that we have, and all of the magic that they can do, and all that we are continually receiving, and the earth herself, and all the trees, the birds, there's this just incredible technology that's far beyond any AI or any computer, anything that those can do, right? And it's right here. It's already within us. So what you're saying here is just so beautiful, to remind us of that. And ritual then is a critical way for us to stay connected with this, with all the divinity that we hold within. So could you share a bit about that ritual and living our lives in a way that is attuned to ritual, that brings that kind of consciousness in on a daily basis? Could you share a little more about that?
Mm-hmm. First and foremost, every day we're creating. Even when we're still in meditation and silent, we're still creating, because we're on planet Earth, and planet Earth is moving in this high-tech way with these celestial bodies around the sun moving forward in space. So we're always moving forward, even while we're healing the past and tending to multiple timelines and dimensions at the same time. And with that is, an immense amount of responsibility and the realization of our continual work of creation. And in the continual remembrance of our creative nature, that what we imagine that becomes our thoughts and our words and our deeds and our habits and our behaviors make our destinies, and then the way that we agree and attune with others creates a shared way of life. And so with that, every day, every ritual we do, even depending on how awake we are in it, or attuned to the fact that it is a ritual, we're creating behaviors and habits that make our destinies. Usually the term ritual is associated with, series of sequences that lead to an outcome. And in relation to a sacred way of life, everything is alive, and it becomes more alive when it's fed and nourished and nurtured and cared for and attended to and respected and adored, And with that, being that this is our one life, this is that time, we're here. It's precious, it's a really precious to opportunity, like what you shared about how high tech our body is. It's like, even when we're asleep, trillions of interdependent beings are working for us to be a spirit and a body, And with that, the being a spirit and a body, it's a sacred opportunity. And every day is an opportunity to commune further with the sacred. And so the simple daily ritual practices, like some of the same simple ones that we do every day, wash dishes, shower, bathe, sweep, sweep, and also the words that we share, abracadabra, I create as I speak. The attention, the time, the approach, the awareness that's embedded in it creates a home place and environment for attunement to the sacred. So like for me, I'm still learning. Sometimes I forget, when I'm washing the dishes, I do my best to utilize that as an opportunity to cleanse and purify myself. So when I'm washing dishes and washing the plates, I utilize this example a lot. I'd use it as an opportunity to cleanse and purify anything that I want to with that holy water, because it's holy water coming out of the sink, it's alive. Or in the morning, I've been doing this practice regularly where I talk to my counsel in the morning and ask for help, my relations on the other side. And the first thing I do is with a glass of water, because every time it's a moment to sit with the water, it's a holy, sacred moment, or wash dishes or shower. I acknowledge the holy water and I talk to my counsel with the water. And then I drink it and I offer it. Super simple. And then that helps me attune to what my intention is for the day. My prayer is for the day. Helps me strengthen my relations with the unseen too. And then take that time to really respect, love, and appreciate the holy water of life, And then when I'm showering, with my son, we get into this practice. He's learning, all these words are coming to him right now. It's so amazing. And we've been talking about how to saying, thank you, holy water, for purifying us at this time, and we pray to the water when we're showering or when we're bathing. Simple things like that help us attune to a ritual way of life, because there are these things that we do every day. And it's so easy to kind of get distracted and caught up in this thing in our thoughts and all the things we need to do. And part of that takes us away from being really present from the preciousness of every moment. This is something I'm always learning about. And so there are these daily rituals of remembrance, attunement, presence. And then sometimes, there are the rituals where we attune to what's happening in the cosmos. Like many of us are very into new moon rituals and full moon rituals, or some of us align with eclipses, some of us align with summer solstices and equinoxes and cross quarters. And depending on our astrological sign, some of us align with what's going on there. And we attune to what's happening cosmically, and we build a ritual practice or a rite to do a journey to support the self and community, to really give our entire focus to the fulfillment of this ritual or rite in community sometimes, or sometimes solo. So those are daily ones. And then there are these ones where we stop everything to sit with the sacred together. And sometimes what I love about, there's the daily ones, and then what I love about the community ones, where where I'm dropping into what's going on cosmically with the stars, as astrologically on this planet Earth, is it's like a memory palace opens, where all of a sudden we're inside this memory palace of this remembrance of a ritual way of life too. When we take that time together to commune with the sacred, I feel like it turns things on. It opens things up. It helps us remember more of what it means to live a sacred way of life. And then that remembrance carries us forward in our daily life and our daily rituals. It's they're shared. They help each other out. And the other thing about a ritual is it just helps us become more intentional about every action, everything we're doing, more intentional, more aware of our creative nature. It's always happening. Sometimes, I've had moments in my life where I feel like I've lost my creativity, or, I can't find it or something. And then I realize oh, wait, I'm creating by saying I've lost my creativity. And that's creating the dynamic where I can't find that energy or motivation to get it moving forward. That's a great moment to purify those thoughts with the holy water, attune to a cosmic moment, and make a prayer to tap into that creative flow again. It's all these simple things. Another simple one that I do regularly, it's called the Luminous light ritual. It's so easy. The way I've been taught is that, the sun, and there's solar light, lunar light, stellar light. It's the infinite light comes from a different location, comes from the sun, or the reflection in the sun of the moon, or the stars. So this luminous light ritual that I do is, if any moment of doubt or uncertainty or fear or anger or these things come up, I feel them, and then I call in the infinite light. I literally sip in the rays like this. I sip in that infinite light, and then when I exhale, I nourish and feed my heart with it, and then activate the sun in my heart. And then I imagine all the rays coming out of my heart, sending that feeling of doubt or uncertainty or fear back to the light. And I sip it in again, and I send it back to the light. And it's not like getting mad at it or demeaning it or punishing it. It's just sending it back, sending it home to the light, Thank it, thank the feeling, and then allow it to move forward.
That's so beautiful. Thank you for sharing.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. And I love what you're saying here, that it's so simple. And it's meant to be simple, right? For us as humans, it's just meant to be a part of our daily activities. Like you were sharing about the doing dishes. And I love that about what you and your son say with the water coming down in the shower. I was sitting on my porch here just last night. There was a big thunderstorm rolling in, and we haven't had rain for like a week and a half or something. And so it's very dry. And I was thinking about all the birds, where do they get water, and how do the animals survive when there's no rain for a long time? And then this rain started coming down, and it was just so beautiful, this like pouring down from the sky. And I realized this is just life force pouring down, just renewing everything that is living here. And the sacredness of that really, it just kind of overwhelmed me. It was so beautiful. So I would love to know more about your thoughts and your understandings of the water and the sacredness of water and the importance of the water for us.
I'm such a student to water. I really am, like the more I learn about water, the more I am in awe. Like I do my best to learn from a lot of different water wisdom carriers. Prayer and prayer form and study form. Some of what I've been learning about water is that, well, first and foremost, in the ancient Egyptian ways, we come from the primordial waters of creation, Nu and Nut, and the life force, like you shared. It's like I've been taught that it's like a androgynous serpent is the life force that comes out from the holy waters, primordial waters of creation, comes forward and creates, manifests. And been taught we're made of water, right? We're taught we're mostly made of water, and that we return to the water. And when we're born, we follow. We're born inside of the water, and then we come out after the water. The water comes first, And that in that way too, being that water changes form, it doesn't leave, it changes form. And so the wisdom of the ages is embedded in the water, which is just like, what? Like to even consider that is just bananas. And then our species are brought in through the water, and others too. And then the water nourishes us and keeps us going. I've also been learning that water is very, very creative. Like being that we're made of water, right? So mostly how we think about ourselves or how we think about things or how we attune to things, just like Masaru Emoto's work in Veda Austin, imprints the water in our body. And then also, water can also communicate to us to help us evolve if we're willing to listen and pay attention to it. There's this amazing presentation that Veda Austin just did recently at the Compass at Lightning in a Bottle, where she's been doing this practice where she shows how she'll put a photograph next to water, and then in the petri dish, she'll freeze it. She has a really particular process, and then the water will replicate the photo. It'll show the image. Mm-hmm. And it's fascinating. I highly recommend everyone look up her work. And then she's also been showing how water can also share what is about to happen sometimes through the imagery. And it's communicative and it's creative. It likes to work with us, And I love considering that as a way, when I think about being a spirit in a body, and I think about the body being mostly made up of water, I'm like, okay, so how I attune to myself, talk to myself, commune with myself is creating with the water in my body that's assisting in how I move, create, shape, ritualize my way of life or not. That helps shape the world, because it shapes the way I perceive things, and then it shapes the way I create things, which is what makes the culture and the community. So water is like a highly intelligent, interactive, creative carrier of living messages, and it imprints living messages, and also feeds us, nourishes everything. I mean, it is just wild. And with that too, the fact that it's that it changes form. And so if even just considering how water changes from solid to liquid to gas, the ability to do that. And then if it's the carrier of the wisdom of the ages, I like to think about Antarctica. It's an example. It's mostly made up of ice. It's like one places that we probably know the least about. But if it's a carrier of the wisdom of the ages, it's mostly made up ice. How much information is right there, of our origin stories. I was also taught too that, with every glass of water, that could be the same water that your, great grandma drank. And then I'm like, wow, my great grandma potentially drank that water. And then it's like an immediate relation and connection to where it come from. And then also where I'm returning to. I could go on and on and on. But something I've also learned that I want to share, that I'm still learning. I'm always learning about water and how to be with water, how to pray with water, everything I've learned. Talk to the water when you're with the water, not about the water. Mm-hmm. So talk to the water, not about the water. And that shifts the relationship of how we commune with water when we're talking to water versus about it. And then that relationship strengthens the communication and the ability to attune to the intelligence, the living messages to support our creative nature, because water is very creative. So we start creating with water. It's also been taught from Veda about, there's we think about the water over our eyes, that we're looking through water.
Wow. Yeah.
And I'm like, wow, we're looking through water, and just attuning to that possibility. And I remember this one time I was really getting into like writing haikus at one point, and there was this moment where all these tears started, pouring out in this practice, in this journey. And then I started writing about tears, and I started attuning to this idea that like when tears emerge, which, I've been taught are like some of the holiest offerings, when the tears emerge, it's like memories come out and they get new oxygen, they get like a breath, and then they go back in, they skin dive back in with that new breath. And so like the memory of the tear is released, and it receives new oxygen, then the memory goes back in with that new breath of life. And I just love that feeling,
So beautiful. Yeah. Right. And how miraculous that the earth is about 70% water, and we are about 70% water, and it's like, of course, that's how life works, and that's what we were created from, but it's so bound to understand our interrelationships through that lens of the water and the life that it brings. It's just incredible.
Yeah, I will always be a student, and I will always be learning from the water. I mean, that one of my primary teachers agreed to being a real student to the water. I also too, just in the ancient Egyptian, philosophies and a particular lineage, the consideration that we come from primordial waters of creation. And so I consider, what does that actually mean? And then I think about it, and I remember Nassim said it in a presentation once, that like the whole universe is made up of water, really, just like spread out, like hydrogen, oxygen spread out in space. Life comes from water. Life is nourished by water. So this idea of like, We come from the holy waters in the cosmos, to this holy planet Earth made up of water, embodiment made up of water. And we return back to it. We're born behind it. We're born made in it. We're born behind it. And then we return back to it. Amazing. Holy water, spirit, amazing.
Yes. Well, I invite everybody listening and watching to really drink your next cup of water with such honor and respect for this beautiful element that we have, and to speak to the water, not about. I remember you saying that before, Isis, and there was a point where every morning I would hold my first glass of water up to the sun, and I realized I was saying, please, sun, infuse this water. And then I realized, oh, I'm not talking to the water. I need to speak to the water in this prayer. And it really shifted the energetic there. It was really beautiful. Yeah, thank you for that wisdom. Yes. Well, I would love to know more about Egypt and your experience of maybe what stands out to you as the most important teachings from Egypt that we need to know today. And I know there's so much, but what really, comes to the top of your mind or the top of your heart regarding that, about how Egypt can really guide us today?
Yeah, there is so much, but the first few things I would love to share is one of the things that I am so deeply devoted to learning about is this idea of co-shaping. Us as humans with the natural world, with the divine realm. And I learned this from a couple different teachers. I'd love to acknowledge Mahmoud Koder, and I'd love to acknowledge Rosemary Clark and Muata Ashby, particularly in this context. But this idea of co-shaping together. Oftentimes, even just sometimes with me, I feel like I got to do everything alone, and then the journey of learning how to ask for support with humans. And then the journey of learning to ask for support in relationship to the natural world and serve in that way. And then the journey of relationship to ask for support in relationship to the cosmos. This idea that there's these three realms, there's the cosmic realm, the divine realm, divine principles, this natural world, intelligence of this natural world, and then us as humans. And that together we're the journey of learning how to consciously and coherently co-shape together. And that we're all working together. And part of working together is to learn how to listen to each other and pay attention to each other and study with each other. And that the part of the human responsibility is to maintain those relationships. And this is some of the old practices in ancient Egypt around what rituals for. The journey of making offerings, ritual in a lot of ways is to make offerings, to feed, nourish the natural world and the divine realm, and to also support in that way by tending to all three of those relationships, so that we're all consciously and coherently co-shaping together. Our job is to maintain them, and for the function of creating, remembering heaven on earth. They're very literal in as far as I, understanding in the origin, teachings. They're very literal on creating heaven on earth. It was like to map the cosmos, to study the cosmos, understand the cosmos, perhaps part of us coming from the cosmos, star beings, map them on Kemet, Egypt, to map it literally through the different temples that align with different star systems, that align with different netadu, divine principles, divine beings, that were in a particular layout of regions that map the regions of the sky. Very detailed, very specific, with different beings. Like there were the terrestrial beings, that there still are, the terrestrial beings, the divine beings, and then the humans did the ritual theurgic practices to feed and nourish and tend to those relationships on behalf of creating heaven on earth. Because they also believe that, every offering fed the earth. It fed not only the beings of the natural world and the beings on the other side, it also fed the divine Neteru, and then it also fed the whole earth. So like when you'd make a prayer to the water, or make an offering to the water, to Hapi as an example. The Nile, the blue and the white Nile came together to form the Nile. And at one point it went into 7 tributaries. It's not 7 now. I think it's 5 to double check. 7 tributaries. And they believe that all those offerings that fed to the god Hapi, or some of the other Neteru, depending on what you're doing, then fed all the waterways of the whole earth. And the same thing with the sacred sites, like the Great Pyramid, one of the only living, standing, ancient 7 wonders of the world, being on a grid, as you know, of other sacred sites, that when you went there for initiation and or fed or nourished or did the transformational work, it also made an offering to the other sites too. It's like a very interdependent network of relationships. So there was a really sophisticated way of continual communion on behalf of consistent, coherent co-shaping. And I find that we're still learning about that. We're really, I just want to honor and send my gratitude to so many indigenous tribes, particularly, in my heart right now, I'm feeling the Amazon and some of the Amazonian tribes that are coming around this home place, that are still carrying the old ways, tending to the ecosystem. Indigenous people take care of 80% of our ecosystem. It's like we want to protect the earth. We also have to protect the guardians of the earth, the ones that know how. And that they're the carriers of these ancient ways of how to be in right relationship and in good communication with the ecosystem, with the living beings of this planet, in relationship to cosmic alignment. I feel like that's something we're still learning, but that's something I'm still learning about, and why I'm devoted to making offerings every year. That's the other piece that I find to be very a powerful learning for me, is an offering way of life. It's so much about ancient Egyptians, Kemet was, alchemy that comes from Kemet, like that's where it comes from, the great work of transformation. It's also like about making offerings. You go to the temple walls and there's all different timelines on the temples, depending on what timeline, but you see very sophisticated details around making offerings. And, what is an offering? Offering comes from us, our breath, our attention, our time, our approach, our songs, our words, our life force, imbued in whatever offering we're making. That way of considering an offering way of life, very different from the idea of progress. Moving forward at the cost of all things living, it's the opposite, where everything we're doing is making an offering. It changes the way we live. And I feel like it really helps to attune to a ritual way of life. This idea of everything we're doing is making an offering. And I feel like that's something that helps me in my way of life, how to be here, And I remember this other thing that I really loved too, that I was taught in India at the Ganga, was, the difference from getting and forgetting, getting more and forgetting, and getting further into this like forgetfulness, or the great forgetting, or the amnesia, and moving more into the giving and the forgiving, the giving and the forgiving and the offering way of life, to help us step more into the journey of remembering who we really are. Because, the deeper we go into our origin stories that are really helpful to help us now, the further we go into our origin stories, wakes up the access to the interior intelligence as our oracular nature to help us serve presently in the now. And I feel to drop into an offering way of life, to really give something good for all the future generations that this is going to. It's a big responsibility that we're leaving in their hands, so we've got to do a good job.
Yes. Yes, we really need to turn the boat here so that our kids and grandkids can have, the start that they really deserve, and a new, a radical new version of the world is what I'm what I often say, but I thank you so much for this, what you're sharing. I just, that what I'm feeling so strongly as I'm listening to you is this sense of reciprocity, right? This ancient and indigenous understanding of the nature of all things as being inherently reciprocal, inherently interconnected and interwoven. The great above and the great below, the tributaries, branching out to the other regions, the sacred sites being connected, all that you said there. It's such a reciprocal understanding of reality. And that is so missing in our modern perception and the way we've built our societies, and everybody just, is expected to be kind of individual, make it on your own. We've forgotten we're connected to the earth. I mean, it's so vast to think about the difference between how they were living in these ancient times and how the indigenous people are still holding that, as you said, but contrasting that with our modern world.
And this really interesting dynamic program around ownership, is the ancient Egyptian ways that I've studied, or I'm always studying, shift that from me, and the older ways, it's like, this is, this ownership in a way that's like, well, own what, like,
right.
Like, even recently, it was so sweet. This woman wrote me an email about a title that she has for a class next, just checking in with me with the title that we have, or, and I just thought to myself, wow, I think that we're programmed to like try to own a title even of a talk or something, And I was like, yeah, whatever, like, may this be helpful. May this be useful. May this be beneficial, like shifting into that way of like, may anything that is offered here today and be useful, be helpful, be beneficial, be of support,
right?
Path moving forward. That like way of consideration and thinking and consciousness is only going to help us all together, because we're in it together, human and non-human.
Exactly. We're all in it together. We're meant to be collaborating. We're meant to be co-creating. Yeah. Yes, absolutely. Yes. Well, I wonder too if you could share a little bit about ritual theater. As we're recording this today, I know you're going to do a presentation later today that I look forward to attending on ritual theater. So what does this mean, and how does it inform us more deeply about returning to these ancient ways of knowing?
Well, first, I'd love to acknowledge my, my sister Eve Bradford. We've been collaborators in this study and devotion to ritual theater for almost 20 years now. It's we came together through ritual theater. We both had a deep love for it, separate of each other, and that's what brought us together. So I just want to acknowledge that. Ritual theater in my studies is the original way of theater. They're rituals, and as far as I've looked back, and I'm always learning and always studying, it looks like one of the first recorded ritual theater productions ever was in the Temple of Edfu, Temple of Heru in Kemet in Egypt. And some of the old stories with ritual theater were to embody creation principles, becoming vessels for creation principles. So oftentimes when we think of like gods or goddesses in the context of ancient Egypt, they'd be Neteru, the divine principles, the principles of the natural world and then of the divine. We hear the name like Horus, which is the Greek name. Heru is the Kemetic name. Or like Osiris is the Greek name. Osir, Asar is the Kemetic name. Aset, Ost, Isis. Neptes, Greek, Nebetet, Kemetic. They're principles of creation. They're creation principles. Some lineages believe that some of them were actually living beings, and some believe that they were just principles. So in some of the old ways I've studied in ancient Egypt, the sacred dramas, the ritual theater, were to embody the creation principles and to make offerings to a particular neteru or particular format of creation principle on behalf of imbuing this world with the transmissions of it. So we could live heaven on earth, live cosmically on earth. It was like very literal. And oftentimes with the sacred sounds and the instruments and the music and the songs, because sound, the world is created by sound, and words. Abracadabra was to also bring forward through ritual gestures and embodiment and songs and sounds and practices and trance to bring these creation principles into existence. So we lived and resided within them. And in that way, imbued not only the person, the being, the individuals, but imbued the culture with the transmission, and then the stories come alive within us. And then, of course, the stories that we tell ourselves, the stories that we create are what creates the culture. And so in this way, it was to bring forward these cosmic stories into living existence so that we are in communion consistently with the divine, the natural as humans. Now, theater later on, I love theater. I go to theater all the time. I just think it's amazing. And it came from a ritual practice, which is connected to making offerings. And I think that's one of the things that we're learning about again, is what does it mean to make an offering? Because even in the dynamic of embodying a story, that is feeding the audience. It's feeding the community. It's feeding the environment. It's giving to the environment a transmission that people go home with, and they influences them in the stories that are in the movies, and then TV and things like this, and then that influences how we think, what we perceive, what we do, and then what we create. It's really big. Got to be careful, my opinion. And so ritual theater is bringing that attention towards a sacred way of life again, and being an instrument for divine principles to come into form on behalf of learning from them, remembering them, embodying them, imbuing life with them, and then creating culture that way, and creating from that stories that become myths, that become legends. So many of the legends, legends of our traditions, our cultures, our story, our creation principles, teaching us about our relationship with the cosmos on planet Earth as humans, with the natural world. So I could go on, and we will. We're doing a whole course just about this.
Yes,
and
wonderful.
Ritual theater is by far one of the greatest teachers for me. It's a format for initiation too. A lot of times, I believe that part of why we're currently navigating this transition the way that we are is in all the different ways that we are. There's so many ways that we're navigating this, but the challenges, I think, are connected to a lack of conscious initiations or rites of passage. And some of the old ritual theater pieces were about that, providing an environment for an initiation and a community rite of passage. I'm sure most of us are familiar with Joseph Campbell and his the hero's journey, or the heroine's journey, the community journey, helping us, and then also too with ritual theater, when these stories come alive of these journeys of transformation, we transform with them. Where in some pieces, sometimes I've had this experience with some theater pieces where I leave feeling like hurt or in pain or ouch, or what's the end? How is it going to go? I guess I'm just left in the mystery. I need to tune to the way of mystery, but sometimes I feel like I have to cleanse myself after some of these pieces.
Right.
And so with ritual theater, we're devoted to creating an environment that supports initiation in some fashion. Usually we have one person that's an initiate that's going on the journey on behalf of making an offering to the whole community. And we do our best to embody the sacred myths and cosmic creation stories to support that journey of transformation. And then we create a home place for the mystery to commune with us and teach through us, because it becomes a live transmission. A lot of the old ways in ritual theater, there was always a live transmission, because the mystery, it's like there's a container for the mystery to communicate and share something that's emergent, versus everything being absolutely rehearsed and recorded all the way through.
Yes.
Transmissions are received that way. They were. And we're remembering how to do this again.
Right. Yes, that's so powerful that it wasn't all scripted, and I'm thinking of the processional stairways in Dendera and Edfu, and the, just the incredible power of what must have been happening there. And had never considered that, right? That it's not pre-scripted. They didn't have a plan for every part of it. It was to allow the mystery to blossom through all of the humans participating in it. That really strikes me as so powerful. And that we're remembering this now. We're bringing this back in. Yeah.
And I find it to be really helpful too, because we're in the time of the great unknown, the great mystery. We don't know, And in the not knowingness is like the birthplace for so much emergent everything. It's a birthplace, and learning how to be related is.
Can you hear me? I think it's breaking up a little bit. I don't know what's happening with the connection today. Can you hear me?
Can
you hear it? So I think it's okay. I don't know what we missed, but I think it's okay the way it is. It's a wonderful interview anyway. It's wonderful the way that it is. So the last thing that I would ask you is just to, did you want to say something?
you remember what I was going to say? Yeah.
Okay. Do you want to go ahead and say it in the recording and we'll have it? Okay.
Yeah. So I was thinking about festivals today.
Right.
And the function of festivals. And, festivals are really old in ancient Egypt. They had elaborate festivals, like super elaborate. And I love elaborate rituals, I really do, because elaborate rituals, when, we just sync up, align, make all the offerings, get to know, do all the detailed work for this elaborate ritual, something happens, it's like a home place or container for the mystery and the spirit to communicate to us and through us. And that just these current modern day festivals, there's so many different kinds, I remember hearing somebody say they're temporary autonomous zones, and that they're temporary autonomous zones where these peak experiences happen, where these, the elaborate time and energy it takes to build these festivals for these powerful peak experiences. And it's like a format of, a modern day format of some kind of rite of passage or initiation just to make it through the weekend, with all of the different variables and dynamics. And I just always wonder and consider what it could be like to, and I've done this, I do this in our own little environments, but, as a culture, to consider attuning to what we're offering collectively in a festival, versus going there to hear this amazing artist or to have this moment or to hang out. All of it too still, but then a moment of a conscious and coherent collective offering. I haven't experienced that to that degree. In smaller cases I have, but not in a large sense, except for one major ritual that we did for the eclipse. And just as a cultural approach to community offering. as a consideration. I was just thinking about that today and able to talk about it. Yeah.
Yeah, that's so beautiful. So beautiful. Well, let's create that. Let's all create that and take that into the womb space and, and see what we can do. That's really beautiful. Yes. Yes. And I'll say one more reflection on what you were sharing. This idea that the theater that we have today originated in that ritual space. That is so powerful. That is something I had not considered. And even this past weekend, I went to my daughter's ballet recital, and it was so beautiful. And there were all these different performances from different ages, and there was tap and ballet and different kinds of dance. It was just so wonderful. And, these kinds of things really, truly began, I'm sure, in sacredness, in honoring, in reverence to all that we are and to the divine and to the heavens and the earth. So yes, thank you.
Instruments for the life force of energy to move through us.
Right.
You feel that with a ballerina that's just like so tapped in, where like when she or he or they are moving, and then all of a sudden all the like truth bumps appear. You feel the like energy when they're like an instrument or vessel for the life force of creation to move through them with grace and ease. It takes time to learn how to do that with anything we're doing.
Yes.
Becoming the instruments and the vessels for the life force energy to move through us as an offering to everybody, to everything.
Right. Right. And then the dance is that offering of the life force. Yeah, it's so beautiful. Yes. Wow. Well, thank you, Isis, for all that you have shared here today. It's been so powerful, so moving. And I would love to ask you, where can people find you online? And are there any upcoming offerings or programs or events that you would love to share about? Feel free to share whatever you are called to here.
Well, first and foremost, I want to say thank you so much for having me. It's an honor to sit with you always, and really appreciate what you do and what you're offering into the world. Just want to say thank you like that.
Thank you.
Yeah. And I'm here on behalf of the Academy of Oracle Arts. I work with a crystal ball called the Oracle. And so her school is the Academy of Oracle Arts. And I'm here on behalf of Imaginal Community. And what we do is we offer all different kinds of courses and ways to study and learn original ancient ways in a modern day. And coming up soon, my sister Eve, Lady Apples, Eve Bradford, and I will be offering the part 1 of a ritual theater 2-part series. So the introduction to ritual theater, that starts June 22nd. We're doing a live webinar tonight, and it's a 7-week course that will become an evergreen. And then we'll be doing part 2 next year. And this is our way of bringing a living mythological way of life into culture and sharing it and supporting others that want to carry that forward.
Amazing. Yes, so beautiful.
Oh, and you can find me too also on Instagram at Isis_Indriya, INDRIYA, academyoforaclearts.com, imaginalcommunity.com.au. And yeah, that's how you can find me. And once again, may everything that was shared here somehow be useful and helpful, beneficial, of service to everybody that listens to this. And in that way, too, just want to say thank you to each and every one of our benevolent, elevated ancestors, guides, and allies that brought us all here together today on behalf of this offering.
Yes, thank you so much. Thank you. Thank you. And thank you again for all the beautiful wisdom, all the inspiration that you shared here today and that you are continually sharing through your work. And many, many blessings to you and your community, Isis. Thank you.
Thank you, Jocelyn. Thank you, everybody.
I hope you've enjoyed this wonderful episode of the Sacred Planet podcast. Be sure to click like and subscribe to our channel so that you will receive future updates. You'll know when we go live and when we are publishing the new episodes. And also be sure to put a note in the comments. What did this episode mean to you? What did this speaker and this topic inspire and awaken in you? And how do you want to share that with the world in new ways going forward? I would love to hear in the comments. And while you're here, go ahead and click on another podcast episode and open your mind, open your heart to more beautiful wisdom from the podcast. Much love, everybody.